everybody. My name's Steve Slane for Chanute Public Schools USD 413, Spotlight on Education. And throughout this school year, we've been doing weekly radio programs for our community to let them know the special things that are going on within our school district. But we're hoping to expand our audience. And so this is our first ever podcast for the school district to try to get reach a broader audience for these issues. And so I just want to welcome you to this, and we'll do these throughout the year. My first guest, and she is so excited to join me for our initial podcast, is Mrs. Mandy Dooling from Chanute High School, science teacher extraordinaire. That's the word I will use. For many years, but I'll give you a little background. First of all, I'll welcome you to the show. So thanks for joining me and being the courageous one to break the ice for these podcasts.
Only for you, Steve Slane. Only for you.
That's right.
But it's a pleasure to be here.
That's what we talked about before was, we coached together for many years. I thought about this last night that it makes me feel old because I remember when we coached and your kids were little.
They are.
And so they... I remember you having to go to their youth games,
Yes.
and now how old are they?
Now they're both graduated from high school, and one in the workforce and the other one taking a semester off, but in college currently. So
wow!
Yeah.
So okay, so I'll get my walker and make my way out of here afterwards.
Yes.
But it's just hard to imagine how long it's been. But I've been out of education for 10 years, and then came back due to the teacher shortage issues this year. So it's kind of been an eye-opening experience, the changes just in that time. And that's kind of what we want to talk about today is the idea that people have of school being what it always used to be, and it's just not that way. And even being gone 10 years and coming back, it's changed so dramatically. And the whole world is changing that way. So hopefully we can help people understand some of the things you're doing out there. So what you're doing is one of the really cool things, I think. Does that date me cool? What's the word for today? Is it cool? I don't even know.
Sure.
But one of the great things that's going on is that you guys years ago developed a pathway. And so let's start off and kind of walk people through this. You teach science, which would have been, years ago would have been basically biology and so on and so forth. And it's juniors, they take state assessments.
Right.
But you have the flexibility to kind of develop that into something that can become a career if they would choose to, or gear them toward a specific area in that field of biology.
That's correct. So we probably about 7 years ago realized that in the science department we were lacking in some variety and also just some different areas for the workforce that was needed here in Chanute as well as abroad. And we felt like we weren't right where we wanted to be. And so we decided we needed to start looking for some different options. And so our first option was, of course, medical field because we have the hospital here in town. And we knew there was a need for all things medicine. And so that's what we wanted to focus on first. And so we did a lot of research and we came across this program called Project Lead the Way. And it was basically everything that we could ever imagine and more. And so we started doing a little bit more research, and then we decided that was the path we wanted to go to. And so that's what our kids have the opportunity to do this year. But we've also got some other pathways going that we can talk about too. So, but Project Lead the Way is the one that I've been the most involved with. And so I've been with it since the inception and have seen it grow into an amazing program, and the kids really enjoy being able to do things that they want to do, that they're passionate about, not just sit in a science classroom because they have to.
That's a secret to teaching.
Yes, it is finding that niche for every student.
Yeah. So long ago that was kind of. I mean, while we taught the subject areas, you also tried to figure out how the kids learn best and work toward that. With that tie to state assessments, it's become more and more difficult for that. Right. So this gives you an opportunity to still do that.
Yeah, and we, within the research, we found out that obviously we needed more equipment. We didn't have everything that we needed in the science department, and so that, of course, had some cost in the beginning, but we've been able to use that equipment not only for this pathway, but for all of our science classes. So all the way from physical science to biology, all the way to physics. So it's good to have all those pieces of equipment and just different opportunities for those students to have. So one of the things that we had to do was go to training. And so originally Tanya Frederick and myself went to training for our first class, which was Principles of Biomedical Science. And basically that class is just learning about medicine in general. And so they started out with a crime scene, and they learned about Anna, our patient. And so they had to figure out how she died, and they learned about all the different things that deal with medicine from an entry-level position. And then they go on to Human Body Systems, which is the second year course, and that's the one that I'm currently teaching right now. And it's kind of like an anatomy class, and so they have different scenarios that they have to put into play for the medical field, and they have to research patients, to look at their signs, symptoms, and figure out what's wrong with them. So essentially what you would do when you go to a doctor's office. And then they go on to the third year program, which is Medical Innovations. And for that one, they get to learn about things like cancer. They get to look at actually DNA. And so they get to do a lot of experiments with that and things and equipment that they would traditionally not see until probably the third or fourth year at college. So the fact that our high school kids get to use this equipment puts them well above their peers when they go on to the college level.
Yeah,
so.
and I want to kind of explain the idea of pathways and where the district went with that, because when we talk about that, you always hear people say, well, there are these other pathways that you're not teaching. But as I understand it, when the district developed those, they tried to get pathways that tied to things within our community in the area. So if kids chose not to go to college, they would still have a baseline that would allow them to get jobs in those fields around here.
And that's one of the biggest things that we do first is we do a career interest survey with the students to see what they're interested in, but we also look at community members to see what kind of needs we do have in the workforce here in Chanute and the surrounding areas, because that's what's critical for our schools to be successful. We want to be able to give back to the communities that we live in, and we want to make sure that our students are well prepared for the jobs that are available. So.
Yeah, and just as we know from both growing up around the area that rural communities have to try to find ways to keep people here and bring people here. If everybody leaves, and that's obviously not, then they get old like us and older and so on and so forth. But so that's
Steve,
the basis.
Did you just call me old?
No, I'm speaking for myself. I'm speaking for myself, obviously. But anyway, so when you mentioned all the pathways, that's one of the things I hope to do throughout this school year is get the people in that are doing the different pathways and so on and so forth. So is there another science pathway besides the biomedical field?
We do. We have two currently. We have the biomedical, and then we have health science. And with the health science, we've added the sports medicine this year. And so we're actually offering students to come in, and they get to shadow Miss Aaliyah, which is our athletic trainer there at the high school. And so part of their career and part of their coursework is they have 20 hours of observation time. So if you've seen the students hanging out with her at the ball games, that's what they're doing. They're not just hanging out. They actually have to watch and see what she's doing, and they get to learn about all the injuries and how to take care of them, and of course hopefully the prevention part of it as well, because we don't want to have injuries in our athletes, but if the time comes where there is one, then they're there and watching her treat it and then figure out where they need to go from there. So.
Well, and so I've got some more questions more specifically in your area, but where I'm going with that one is there a physical science pathway as well? My fear is that at some point in time I'm going to have to do one of these with Dr. Kevin Blair. I'm wanting to avoid that at all costs, and as you know, we can say this. If he and I got together, there would be no time limit on what would go on, and we probably wouldn't say anything, just give one another a hard time. Would you agree with that?
That might be a true statement. That might be. So, well, we don't currently have a physical science one. We do have environmental, and so we have some wind energy programs going on.
Yes,
and
I've
Mr.
seen
Gahagan
that.
is a part of that.
Yes.
And so, so we are broadening our horizons. So who knows? Maybe Mr. Blair will stick around long enough for us to convince him to do one too.
I gotcha. Well, no, and that's one of the things I said. I hope to get the different people in throughout the spring to let people know what these pathways are and what, because unfortunately, and I can go into other podcasts where I give my own thoughts on this, but public education getting a bad rap, and so the community hears what they hear out on the news or wherever, and we're doing some great things that people, unless you're there, you don't know about, and that's what this is all about. So
that's awesome. We appreciate that.
Yeah. So you said, and I had Jory Murray on, who took Tanya Frederick's place. This is the first year Tanya's gone, correct?
Yes, that
and
is
then
correct.
she chose to go into another, still in the science field, but another
Yes.
area of it.
Yes.
And Jory moved up from the middle school to start covering that. So she's doing the freshman part where they do the crime scene and some of the
Yep.
early stuff. And then do you do both of the next two levels?
I have the second class for HBS, and then Jory has the third one for MI. And then this summer I'll go to training for BI, which is our fourth one. So that's Tanya was also the teacher of that one, and so this summer I will teach that one. So we didn't offer BI this year, but we'll offer it again next year for
gotcha.
biomedical innovations. So
Well, I was wondering what,
Yes.
biomedical. Well, see, and the world is changing so rapidly that in itself is an important thing. You have to
It is.
teach the kids how to be prepared for the new things.
You do.
One of the things when I left 10 years ago, I said the biggest challenge that teachers have now is you have to prepare kids for jobs that don't exist yet.
that's true.
You know, because by the time they go through high school, everything will have changed once again.
true.
So I think that's a great thing. And if I were involved with that, it would have been like BS. See, because I'm good at that. Would you agree?
I would agree.
And most people who know me would agree with that. But anyway, so you do that. Will you always stick with that? I mean, that rotation, or will you
Yes.
sometimes take the freshman and she will do the other?
We can do both. I'm certified for PBS as well. So last year I actually taught PBS and HBS because the numbers were high enough that we needed two of us. But right now, currently, Jory is just trained for PBS and MI, and then I'm PBS, HBS, and then the summer will be BI. So
And-
it's a little bit of a lot of acronyms.
That's what I'm just going to say. See, that was one of the funny things we went through with
Yes.
Jory last week when she said PBS, and I'm like, so you're getting certified in the public broadcasting
Yes.
system, right? No. What do those acronyms mean? So you can tell them a little bit.
So PBS stands for Principles of Biomedical Science, and then HBS is Human Body Systems,
I
and
gotcha.
then MI is Medical Innovation or Intervention, excuse me, and then BI is Biomedical Innovations. So lots of tongue twisters. In
Oh
there.
yes, oh yes. But I know that they started this year at the middle school.
Yes.
Since I'm there again, that they have kind of a club for kids who might be interested to learn a little bit more about it.
Yes.
And then when it comes time to enroll, they have an idea if they want to go into it.
Yeah, we were fortunate enough to start HOSA at the high school level about 4 years ago. And we had a student, actually Jillian Vogel, twisted
Oh.
Tanya and I's arm and said, we need this program.
Yes.
And we said, where are we going to fit it in? You know, our schedules are packed. And she said, doesn't matter, we'll find a way. And so we did, and we've loved it ever since. I'm glad that she took the initiative as a student to convince us to have this program because it truly has been fantastic for our kids. So part of HOSA, our students, anybody that wants to be in the medical field, any type of medical field, so anything with medicine, even veterinarian, I mean, we'll take them all that they have an interest, and they get to learn just a little bit about what they want to do. And so they have community service activities that we do. So during National HOSA Week, we actually take gift baskets to all the different medical professionals around town. So we take them to a little bit of everywhere. We took them to the fire department this year. We added that one this year. But we take them to the pharmacies. We take them to the chiropractors. We take them to the hospital, to the doctor's offices. We just try to hit as many medical professionals as possible and just try to say thank you for what you do. And then, of course, we host the blood drive at the high school twice a year. And so that's been HOSA's biggest project. And that's a lot of fun, and the kids really enjoy that. And it's obviously a good community service, and it's good for high school kids to do that because if they donate in high school, more chances they'll donate as adults. And there's a blood shortage, so the more people
Yes.
we get to donate, the better.
And as you mentioned that, I will ask, one of the things that the kids get to do and I don't know if it's your level or Jory's, but they get to actually be a
Yes.
phlebotomist where they
Yes.
take the blood. Do they actually help with that during the blood drive?
They do not actually do the blood drive. They don't get to do the phlebotomy part, but they get to basically help the Red Cross, and so they'll help bring the patients or the donators to the beds, and they'll sit with them and talk to them. So if they're nervous or have any kind of questions, they're basically there just to calm their nerves and and just keep them occupied while they're donating blood. And then they escort them to the best part, which is the food station when they're done. That's
course.
why the kids like to do this,
Yes.
is they like to eat. And so after it's done, we usually have some type of meal for them, from walking tacos to biscuits and gravy. It just kind of depends on the year. We've had pulled pork sandwiches, we've had pulled pork nachos. So we try to make it something the kids want to eat, and that's just another incentive because they all
Sure.
love to do stuff like that. So.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. And a couple of things that I passed over, and I probably wouldn't have known to ask if I hadn't interviewed Jory last week. But if they choose, I mean, it's an elective kind of thing. They can choose to take this or take the regular science curriculum. Which one would it be as a freshman?
Most of our freshmen take physical science.
Physical science.
And then as sophomores, they would take biology. And then chemistry, if they're going into a four-year university, is our recommended junior course. But we also have earth space. We also have environmental science. We also have our ag sciences. So Mrs. LaHaye,
Yeah, I hope to visit with them next time,
agricultural
yes.
sciences. And so a lot of her classes with advanced animal science and things like that count for some of their science electives. And then, of course, senior year, it's totally up to them. To have graduation requirements, they have to have 3, so they could potentially be done after junior year, or if they want to go on and continue to challenge themselves, then we have lots of options with physics and some other courses.
Sure.
So.
And one of the things, if parents are listening, to understand is that if they choose to try this at the beginning, at any time, if they feel like, oh, I don't want to do it anymore, they can transfer back over to the general science curriculum.
Yes, and we have some students that graduate with 10 science credits, and we have others that graduate with just 3, and that's okay. We just want to try to expose students as much as we can to all the different possibilities. When they're freshmen, they can choose either physical science or PBS, and either one will count as their freshman science. When they get to the sophomore level, we still require them to take biology, so they actually double up, so they take biology and human body systems. And then junior year, they'll double up most of the time with chemistry and MI, but we have had some other varieties, but most of the time that's what they'll do. And then senior year, BI and physics usually.
Yeah, so can it work the other way, though? I see it being difficult if a student came in, and this is kind of for parents of future students coming up, they say, oh, I'm not interested now, and you know how it is with high school kids. Then another year they're like, wow, I think that might be. But to try to get into it in the middle would be very difficult to catch up. Am I correct?
It is difficult, but it is not impossible. We've had some students that start with PBS as juniors. They don't get the full 4-year courses, but they can get the exposure through as many classes as they have left in their schedule. So,
So when we talk about, you've talked about all the areas that you cover and kind of get into. One of the things that I know a lot of kids get into when they get out of school or whatever is the CNA.
Yes.
Are they able to get that in part of this, or is that on top? And how does that work? Because that's one of the areas I know you work toward.
Yes, and that's one of our pathways as well through the health science. So they can go CNA, CMA, or they can do the sports medicine, so they can actually veer off either direction. Most of the time with the schedule the way it is, they'll take either the PLTW or the CNA or the sports med. So it's hard to do all 3 of those at the same time because of there's just not enough room in the day.
Yeah.
But yes, they do have the opportunity to take CNA and CMA at the high school. And the nice thing about that is the cost is very minimal, if any, because of the grants that we're able to provide. So they can get a certificate before they leave high school and have a nice paying job when they get done.
That's very important. And so that's the main thing with this, and you've done a great job of kind of breaking it down. We could probably sit here for hours and get into all the details of it, but I just want parents to know that, you know, when we used to go through school and you had, as a freshman you took this, and as a sophomore you took that, and so this has given them a variety to go toward, and we realize high school kids may change. That's just the way it goes. That's the age, but they have much better chance of coming out prepared to go into something in this field than they ever would have before.
Very much. So we have lots and lots of varieties at Career and Tech Ed now at the high school. Every year we seem to be adding more and more pathways, so the kids' choice levels are, it's the sky's the limit. So really it just depends on how many teachers we have and what room in the schedule to be able to provide all those courses. But the more teachers we have, the more variety we can offer, and the better chances the kids have to find something that actually truly fits what they want to do.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. So Is there anything else you can think of before? I mean, we've covered it all fairly well, and I know people may have more questions. And I always try to throw out, because I know she appreciates it, that if anybody has any technical questions, to call Linda Udine at Chanute High School. Linda's always, thanks so much for thinking that for me. But for those of you who don't know, Linda Udine is one of the secretaries of the high school that is a year or two older than I am. Now, I don't mean to be saying anything about her age, but she's one of the favorite ones I have to pick on. So I always try to take advantage of that whenever I can, Mrs. Dooling. So anyway.
I'm sure Linda will appreciate that.
She will. I'm sure I'll get whenever this goes out, I'll get an email like,
Most
thank you again.
definitely.
But
Most
anyway,
definitely.
so thanks for coming in. I thought this was, after I visited with Jory last week, I thought this is really a great pathway to start with for people to see.
It really has been, and we've been so fortunate that our medical professionals in town have been very open and willing and cooperative with our students, and let our students come in and shadow and get to learn so much. The hands-on that they get outside of the classroom with those professionals is unbelievable, and we couldn't do our program without them. So I just want to say thank you to all the medical professionals out there, because we truly appreciate everything they do for us.
Yeah.
From coming in to speaking, to letting kids shadow, to answering questions that we might have. I mean, they really have been the backbone for our program, and we appreciate that.
Well, and we would never have imagined when I retired 10 years ago that we now in rural America, we should be thankful that we have a hospital.
Right.
We've seen in the past decade towns went through various, we won't get back into the politics, but who have lost their hospitals. And we're fortunate enough to have our main hospital, Neosho Memorial Regional Medical Center, but Labette Health is in community as well. It has a little satellite thing here. So we are in much better shape along those lines. And so this is great for us to have people that can go directly into some of those, or at least have a step in the doorway along those lines. So,
and that's truly what the hospital and the clinics want, is they want these kids to come in, because that gives them a chance to do some recruiting while they're here, because we do want to be able to provide a service for our community, and to bring these kids back after they've gone through their training is what it's all about. So without their help, we wouldn't be in this situation. So it's been great.
And one last thing, going back to what you said, the one that kind of approached you guys and pushed you and Tanya was Jillian Vogel, right?
Yes, that is correct.
She has a unique story of her own.
She very much does.
So tell them about Jillian and where she's at. So understand that ultimately this was driven by a student originally. But she's a pretty unique student.
Jillian
go
was
with
definitely one of a kind. She currently is Harvard.
Yes.
And so not very often do I get to say that I have a student at Harvard.
Right.
And I actually was with her when she got her acceptance letter, which also was very, very exciting. She was one of our state officers for HOSA. And so we were actually at a state event, and she's like, okay, Seth, I have to look at who is our state advisor. I said, I have to read my email. It's supposed to come in. And he's like, okay, as soon as we're done, we'll check it. And so, of course, I knew parents would want to see the reaction. And so I had my camera ready, because I knew one way or another it was going to be a reaction. And there was never a doubt in my mind that she wouldn't get accepted, because I knew that she's the caliber of student that would do whatever it took, and she definitely did. So she pushed us in this direction, and the sky's the limit for her as well. So we're very excited that she did.
Well, and I thought that just needed to be mentioned, because she's done many great things, and I'm sure there will be more great things to come in her future. So thanks for coming in. You did a great job. I know you were nervous. You were nervous. Everybody that has to talk to me is nervous regardless. They never know what's going to happen.
We never know what's going to come out of Steve's mouth.
That's very true. Everybody that knows me says that. So, but I'll just say to everybody out there that with all the stuff in the news, please know that the teachers are doing things that we have never done before, and giving kids more opportunities not because of what's coming down from the legislature, but in spite of it, that we're offering things and opportunities to kids that will help them in the future better than we ever have before. So
I would agree.
Once again, thanks for coming in. And once again, I'm Steve Slane, thanking Mandy Dooling for joining me today. And this is Spotlight on Education for USD 413 Chanute Public Schools. And we'll be back again in the future. I invite you all to keep an eye out and tune back in when we have our next podcast coming up in the near future. Have a great day and a great week, everybody.